Hey, welcome back. So today I want to talk about something that happens in almost every marriage. And honestly, in most long-term relationships, it's that classic tension between the person who needs to talk it all out and get to the bottom of things, and the person who just wants to say, "Can we please move on already?" Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. Let me share a story that might hit close to home. A woman wrote in recently and she said, "Whenever my husband and I argue, I feel like we have to go through everything. What happened? Who said what? What was fair and what wasn't? If we don't sort it out properly, I can't let it go. I can't genuinely smile or feel close to him again. My husband is the complete opposite. After a while, he'll say, 'Let's just forget it. It's done. It's in the past.' But I can't forget it. I need resolution. I need acknowledgement. And honestly, maybe I want him to admit he was wrong. I know this creates tension. But if we don't clarify things, I feel unsettled for days. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, 'Wait, did I write that?' You're definitely not alone. This dynamic is incredibly common. And here's the deeper question I want to explore today. Is this really about being right? Or is something else going on underneath the surface? At first glance, this looks like a personality difference, right? One partner seeks resolution through discussion. The other seeks resolution through de-escalation. One wants to dig in. The other wants to move on. But here's the thing, and this is important. Both people are trying to restore connection. They're just using completely different strategies to get there. The "let's talk it through" partner often feels safe only after there's clarity, after acknowledgement, after they feel heard. The "let's move on" partner often feels safe only after the tension drops, after the storm passes, after things feel calm again. So this isn't really about right versus wrong. It's clarity versus calm. It's validation versus stability. And when those needs collide, which they will, it starts to feel like, "You don't care about my feelings," or "Why can't you just let this go?" But here's what's happening underneath both of those reactions, and I really want you to hear this. Both partners are essentially saying the same thing. I want this relationship to feel safe again. They just have very different ideas about how to get there. Let's go a little deeper. If you're the one who needs to process everything, every detail, every word, every implication, you might tell yourself, "I just want fairness. I just want things to be clear." And that's true. But very often, underneath that need for fairness, there's something more vulnerable hiding. If you don't acknowledge what happened, I feel unseen. If we don't clarify this, I'm scared it's going to happen again. If you can't admit any fault, I feel alone in this relationship. That's not ego. That's not being dramatic. That's a genuine need for emotional safety. Now, on the other hand, if you're the one who wants to move on, your internal experience might sound more like, "This is exhausting. We've already talked about this. Why are we reliving the same thing over and over? Can we please just get back to normal?" And you know what? That's not coldness. That's not indifference. That's also a need for relief, for stability, for peace. So here's where couples often get completely stuck. One partner tries to feel safe through analysis. The other tries to feel safe through avoiding tension. And both end up feeling totally misunderstood. It's actually kind of tragic when you think about it. Two people who love each other, both trying to protect the relationship, but in ways that accidentally hurt the other person. Okay, here's something I've come to believe over time, and I want to share it with you. Not as a rule, but as something worth considering. In business, in professional settings, accuracy often matters more than harmony. You need the right answer. You need accountability. You need clarity about who's responsible for what. But in intimate relationships, harmony often matters more than perfect accuracy. Now, before you misunderstand me, I'm not saying truth doesn't matter. Of course it does. But if every single conflict becomes a courtroom, if someone always has to win and someone always has to concede, emotional intimacy starts to erode slowly, quietly. But it happens. At the same time, just sweeping everything under the rug isn't the answer either. That builds resentment, that creates distance. So what's the middle path? Not full dissection, not full suppression, but something I'd call selective clarity. You address what truly needs addressing and you release the rest. Let me offer a simple approach that might help. 3 steps. Nothing complicated. First, name the feeling, not the verdict. Instead of saying, "You were wrong," try saying, "I felt hurt when that happened." Feelings invite connection. Verdicts invite defense. When you lead with a verdict, the other person's walls go up. But when you lead with a feeling, there's a chance, just a chance, that they'll actually hear you. Second, offer limited acknowledgement, not total defeat. Here's the truth. Healing doesn't always require a full admission of guilt. Sometimes all it takes is something like, "I can see why that hurt you," or, "Yeah, I didn't handle that well." That small moment of recognition, it can restore safety faster than a 2-hour debate ever could. And third, release the rest. Not because it doesn't matter, but because relationships simply cannot survive constant auditing. They can't. You don't need a perfectly balanced emotional ledger where every wrong is cataloged and every grievance is settled. You just need enough repair to move forward, and enough doesn't mean perfect. It means workable. Now here's where it gets personal, and I want to be really clear about something. What I'm about to say is meant for you to apply to yourself, not to your partner, not to your spouse, not to anyone else. The moment you take these ideas and use them as ammunition, "See, you should be doing this," they backfire completely. It just becomes another way to be right. So, with that said, if you're the partner who tends to analyze and press for clarity, your growth edge might be this: can you reduce the intensity by about 20%? Not silence yourself, not suppress what you need. Just soften the insistence a little. Leave some room. See what happens. And if you're the partner who tends to shut down and move on too quickly, your growth edge might be this: can you stay in the discomfort just a little longer? Not endure an endless interrogation. That's not what I'm saying. Just offer one sincere acknowledgement before you close the chapter. Healthy relationships aren't built on perfect justice. They're built on mutual flexibility, on two people who are willing to stretch just a little toward each other. So here's my invitation for you today. If you find yourself fighting to be right, pause and ask yourself, am I seeking truth or am I seeking reassurance that I matter? And if you're the one rushing to move on, ask yourself, am I protecting peace or am I just avoiding discomfort? When both people shift even just slightly, conflict stops being a battle and it starts becoming a bridge. Now, I want to say one more thing before I go. Everything I've shared today is just my own perspective. Things I've observed. Things I've learned, sometimes the hard way. But this isn't therapy. And it's not a substitute for working with someone who can actually sit with you and understand your specific situation. If you're really struggling, please reach out to a professional. There's no shame in that. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. Thanks for being here today. If this resonated with you, maybe share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, connection is rarely restored by winning. It's restored by understanding. See you next time.